I'm Mark Fiske, and you're listening to Clear the Air. Hi, I'm Mark Fiske with Sonic Spotlight Productions, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Clear the Air. Picking back up with where we left off in episode 2. In college as a music education major, I did well, but I was pretty unfocused. I was back in my hometown, and I was still trying to find ways to help people. Most of my friends were in college like me, but unlike me, they were in colleges in other places. One day I was at a meeting with the students in the education major at my college, and one of the professors made it clear that, at least in the mid-90s, if we were to get convicted of a DWI or underage drinking, we could kiss the idea of ever teaching goodbye. Maybe that wasn't the case then, and I know it's definitely not the case now, but the reality was that I wasn't 21 yet, and I hadn't had any alcohol yet. So along with my unlocked fear that I wasn't going to start drinking anytime soon, lest I be completely and permanently, unemployable, I made sure my friends and classmates knew I was available to help out wherever they were and whenever they needed it as a designated driver. There were trips to Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, where I was possibly doing hopefully safety-preserving favors for my friends, but I was not doing my music skills any favors. As I think back about that, reminisce is absolutely the wrong word. Almost every single one of those situations was sketchy, but none of them were as dangerous as the last time. That time I was called by a friend asking for my help, but I arrived in a setting that we've never talked about again, and I'm not going to talk about again here, except to say that it's super sad to see someone you know and grew up with seem to be placing so little value on their own existence and self-worth. I get that people like examples, and the only ones you're going to find here involve my friend drinking to the point of losing consciousness and losing track of where they'd been and even what they'd done and what had been done to them. And then there was the associated depression and anxiety that comes with that territory. On my way home from that last trip, I asked myself a series of questions, including whether my friend would have placed themselves in that situation if they hadn't known that I'd be available to help get them out. And I wrestled with that for a while and eventually decided to stop driving. I had never known if that was the right thing to do, but then one day about 15 years ago, I got a message out of the blue from my friend thanking me for the help that night and for saving their life. Once I stopped driving, I finally decided to focus on my music education as a college junior, and eventually ended up employed at a place that was rated one of the 100 best communities for music education. After 21 years, I had around 1,000 students, and I was lucky to have a number of really talented, accomplished musicians. And here's where I get myself into trouble, because these are just the ones that come to mind semi-chronologically, so please don't come after me if I leave someone obvious off. But they had names like Cassie, Amber, Kevin, Sean, Aaron, Kelly, Chris, Shauna, Joey, Jenna, Caitlin, Cody, Eric, Austin, Tony, Kyle, Seth, Jillian, Mackenzie, Michaela, Bryant, Madison, Brandon, Alec, Bailey, Mason, Graham, Nathan, Dalton, Andrew, Haley, Michaela, and Katie. And if at this point you're assuming I'm about to take any credit for that partial list of names, I'm going to say something that'll serve as the cliffhanger for this episode. Music is such an important outlet for school-aged kids to have. It takes up a lot of time, and even more time if you make the decision to get good at it. And that leaves almost no time for unhealthy hobbies or dangerous hobbies. And it's also a means of expression for people who might not be great with words or even good with words. But behind closed doors, every honest music teacher will admit to you that outside of providing equipment and facilities, they have nothing to do with creating successful, expressive, technically proficient musicians. And I mean nothing. Early in my last teaching job, I had a student whose mom seemed to have a semi-urgent need to point out to me that her daughter had and I'm quoting her here, more talent in her little finger than I had in my whole body. And over the years, I can think of 2 or 3 other times where I had similar conversations like that with parents of talented students. And something that I admit that I struggled to verbalize at the early stages was that actually that's what you want as a music teacher. The teachers aren't the ones going out on the field or up on the stage and playing the instruments, and so it's only in rare cases, maybe even where there's a personality disorder in play, that a music teacher would argue that having talented students is a problem. We'll pick that topic back up in the next episode of Clear the Air. I hope you've enjoyed these first 3 episodes, and if it seems like there's a lot more to say, it's because there is. We'll be back with new episodes starting on December 14th. Thank you again for listening and for your support.